today we took advantage of a high pressure system here in the Keweenaw Peninsula. We had bright, clear skies, few clouds, and a good system that had moved in after a few days of low pressure. And what that did is it created an opportunity for us to get out in the middle of Lake Superior at a place that we all like to go called Stannard Rock. 38-mile boat ride one way. So this is a real major offshore fishing trip, and it's definitely not something you can enter into lighthearted without a little bit of preparation and due diligence and making sure you've got a good forecast and all the safety gear and everything else in a row before you head off out in the big lake. Basically, to get ready for this trip, when we head out to Stannard Rock, we're fishing on an offshore reef structure in the middle of Lake Superior. So all surrounding this reef is roughly 600 to 800 feet of water. And that little bit of land, known as Stannard Rock, is literally about a 10-foot diameter island adjacent to a lighthouse that was situated there in the 1800s. You know, so out in the middle of Lake Superior right now, the water temperature is 38 degrees. What we're looking for is underwater pinnacles of rock and just an unbelievable amount of structure out on this reef where you've got some good cover. These fish are going to be congregated. They're feeding, you know, they're out in the open water there. They're feeding on smelt. They're feeding on herring. And another one of their favorites is actually the burbot, which is also known as an eopout, a lawyer, goes by many different names, but it's a very important food source for the lake trout here in Lake Superior. Once we got out to Stannard Rock this morning, it was glass calm, so we had a beautiful boat ride out, and we took advantage of that to get everything rigged up. We typically fish a lot of soft plastics, a lot of paddle tails, a lot of swim baits, twister tails, you know, fairly large soft plastics. So this water out on Stannard Rock is just unbelievably clear. And one of the really cool things is that when you're out fishing on the reef, we're casting, and these lake trout, based on how they hunt in open water before it, typically tend to follow the bait right back into the boat. And a lot of times the hits and the takes that we get are literally happening right boat side. It's hunting season. Game on.
Oh, what a pig!
20-pound Stannard Rock lake trout right there. First cast.
Yeah, look at that. Because that's only half of it.
Oh, man.
Yeah, look at that.
Now there's some carnage. That's called a lake trout meal.
Nice.
We'll chum this water. Get it. Here where you want it, and then yep. There you go.
Yeah.
All right. When you're ready, just. One of the neat things about fishing out at Stannard Rock is that the lake trout tend to school up in small groups. So you'll have groups of anywhere from 2 or 3 up to maybe 7 or 8 fish, all similar size, that are sort of bunched up, working together as a pack. So they're going to use 2 things to ambush their prey. One, they're going to use the rocky structure, and that's an area where these lake trout are hunting and feeding, and they use that structure to pin their prey. The other thing that they use to their advantage when they're feeding out in open water is the surface of the lake. They literally have to chase it to the top of the lake until it has no place else to go to escape in order to eat. And one of the cool things is that most of your hits are either going to happen instantly when your bait hits the bottom. If not, it's going to happen right in front of you at the boat side.
I just had a real good follow.
Were you ripping it?
Nope.
Oh, he's funky hooked. Oh. Still a nice fish, but funky head. Alright. Still a nice fish, but he didn't get the main hook in his mouth. Sometimes they just go in and check it with the body and... So one of the things I want to stress, I really want to stress the importance of making very safe decisions when you're out boating, and especially when you're on big waters like Lake Superior. You just can't take for granted that your weather's going to stay the same, and that when you leave the dock and it's calm and sunny and beautiful, and you get out on the lake, you're going to have the same conditions. And if it looks like there's any question or any doubt that there may be some weather cropping up, where there's some wind, big waves, you know, thunder, lightning, you know, we're not going to go out there. And that's one of the things I just can't stress enough. Some of the basic safety things that you absolutely need to have if you're going to go offshore in Lake Superior. You need to have yourself an absolutely 100% reliable GPS, a chart plotter, loaded with all the lake maps, where you're going, where you're leaving from. You need to have a backup GPS, you know, a handheld, some sort of method of getting yourself from A to B if your main chart plotter decides that it's not going to work for you. And in addition to that, you need a ship's compass. Paper charts are a great idea. If you can get yourself a copy of paper charts and a compass, no matter what happens to your electronics, you're going to be able to get yourself home. In addition to that, on Lake Superior, it's a federal requirement that you're going to have flares and other safety equipment, such as fire extinguishers, on board. Make sure everybody on the boat has a life jacket that is immediately accessible. You know, we're not wearing ones right now, but we have one right within reach here. And any time that this lake kicks up and weather starts getting inclement, we're going to be putting those on, and we're going to be making sure that we're 100% ready for whatever situation is about to happen. The other thing that you absolutely have to have out here in Lake Superior is a good ship-to-shore VHF marine radio. You know, this is absolutely mandatory. It's your only way to contact anybody, to let them know where you're at and what's happening should you get yourself into any trouble. And that can be as simple as your battery dies, can't start your engine, electronics fail. You need a way to let other boaters know where you're at and what's going on, so that they can assist you in an emergency. So a good VHF radio, GPS chart plotter, compass, and a backup set of charts or GPS, and you're going to have a great time, if you use good judgment, out here in Lake Superior making these big offshore trips. The other thing I want to talk to you guys about and really stress here, these big lake trout are hardy fish. They fight like heck, but you need to use some great handling techniques when you get these fish in the net and in the boat. Every one of these trophy fish goes back into the lake if it's able to do so. You know, with absolutely no exceptions, when we catch one of these trophy lake trout, you know, really anything over 10 or 15 pounds, we're putting that fish right back in the lake after a very quick photo if we need to. You don't want to hold those fish out of water for any period of time, you know, whatsoever. You know, 30 seconds tops for a picture, and getting that fish right back in the lake is so important. And as soon as you get that big fish in the net, you can swing them right into your live well, take good care of that fish, and then get them back into the lake. Here in Lake Superior, these fish grow less than a ½ pound per year, or a ½ inch per year on average. They have a very slow growth rate, and they don't reach sexual maturity until they're about 7 to 8 years old. So keeping that in mind, you know, your ideal size for eating out on this lake is a fish that is still immature, which would be less than that 7 or 8 year old range. And those fish really start to mature after they reach about 6 or 7 pounds. So when we're out here, we're typically looking for 4 to 6 pound lake trout to take home. And generally on a good or average day, there's absolutely no issue catching as many of that size fish as you can possibly want for taking home for dinner. Have fun out there, be safe, and we'll see you on the water. He's decent. Definitely decent. He's got some weight to him. You step in the Bondi bait up from about 120 feet up to this little hump, about 100 foot. About 20 seconds into that cast. Oh, definitely going to be a big net. Oh yeah. Big net? Yep. I'll bring them right in close to you. I'll bring them in right close to you. Oh, there we go. Oh, that's a pig. Woo! It's a pig. Woo! Wow. Now that's a fish. Ooh, just a beautiful fish. Get some measurements on her. 39 and a half.
That's a fish. That's a trophy. The girth on this is pretty incredible. Right there's a point that's 24 inch girth. 39.5 or 24. Whew. This thing is the size of my hand. It's incredibly beautiful fin. That one's threaded up in a real interesting way from some sort of battle scar there. There's a fish. All right, we're gonna let this girl go. There is nothing more exciting or satisfying or rewarding than watching that fish swim away. That's the best part of it. Wow. Like a 30, 40-year-old fish at least right there. There aren't a lot of them like that.